Okay, so we are in the book of Numbers, chapter 21. It's a very famous story. If someday some of you will end up in St. Petersburg, Russia, not St. Petersburg, Florida, though it's probably a cool place to be, you know. You might want to go to the Russian, I think it's the Russian. I'm sure I misspelled it. I misspelled it over here. E. No. Just E. EU here.
Get rid of the first E.
Get rid of the first E. There you go.
See, there we go. Perfect. So in Russian museum there is a bronze serpent picture. It's I don't know, 15 feet probably by 10 feet, something like that. Great. I mean, apart from size, it's just awesome. There is Moses with Aaron, and actually now looking back, it's kind of weird, but okay. So Moses and Aaron, and there is a huge marble column, and on the top there is this bronze serpent, and people are some beat by snakes and then turn away, and some people are, snakes all over them, but they look at this thing and they hope to survive. Now, before we'll go into the story itself, as usual, we will have a small contextual study. Where are we and what are we doing? Where are we in the Bible? So, we are, okay, I'm not going to draw the whole thing. What is most important is about 1445 BC. We left Egypt, so we are almost there. So Numbers 21, if this is 40 years, we are kind of roughly 2 years. So 2 years prior to the entrance to the land. Okay. We've been wandering around, did some silly stuff. Now we kind of starting to get out. And to get out, we need a full change in leadership. Therefore, in chapter 19, I believe, 20. In chapter 20, in the very beginning of chapter 20, Miriam dies. As soon as, and do you remember what Miriam is famous for? Okay, it's a sister of Moses, and she is famous for few things, at least two. She was the one who was looking after her boy brother, when he was in the basket in the water, and she was the one who suggested to a Pharaoh daughter of a Pharaoh, that actually there is a lady who recently got a child. Turns out it was Moses' mother, who would be willing to do breastfeeding stuff and all of this kind of stuff. So Miriam is very closely connected with water. The second thing she's very famous for is when they crossed the Red Sea, or the Sea of Reeds, actually, Yam Such in Hebrew. So when they crossed the Red Sea, or the Red Sea, let's stay with that, she led other women with a dance and beautiful song. Okay, we have it in Exodus 15. So she's very often, in those two stories, she's very closely connected with water. This is a very interesting thing. When she dies, immediately after her death, we discover new sources of water. Okay? So we have this change, with that leadership, she's gone, and now we have new water. Then, sometime a little bit later passes by, and at the very end of chapter 20, with verse 22, we have a death of Aaron. Interestingly enough, let me probably write it down. So death of Miriam knew water. Okay? Then we will have death of Aaron. And we have new victory. Our passage starts with the phrase, verse 4, in 21:4. From Mountain Hor they set out by the way of the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom. It is very interesting that before Aaron dies, they actually approach the land of Eden. And we need to remember who Eden is. Eden is our very close relative. Eden comes from Esau, okay, brother of Jacob. Okay, so this is our cousins, but the king of Eden says, no guys, I don't want to let you go through my land. I don't know why, it's not really explained. Aaron is still alive. Instead of fighting with them, instead of fighting with the king, instead of fighting with Edomites, they go around, they made another loop around the desert. Okay? Interestingly enough, as I said, when Aaron dies, the Canaanite king, Arad, I think, really? Yes, Arad. When the Canaanite king of Arad, who lived in Negev, okay, so on the south side, so Negev actually means south. So it is the name of the wilderness, but it also means south. So on the south side of Canaanite land, heard that Israelites were coming, he attacked them. And with new leadership, with Aaron being gone, they actually are victorious. Okay? The one more leader should be changed, and it's Moses, but we are not there yet. So out of previous leadership group, we have, in our story, we have Moses only. Okay? No Miriam, no Aaron. No, I know it's very kind of cool thing, when you see a company, I don't know, family owned and operated. Okay, before the whole Israelite camp was basically, I don't want to say family owned, but family operated. Because Moses, Aaron, and Miriam are three siblings of one family. Okay, Moses was the leader of the camp. Aaron was a high priest, the first high priest in the camp, and she was a prophetess. Okay? Now, two of them are gone. Now we have Moses only. No, with this story, so what we come here is we have this thing, and this is very important. It is important, as I said, because Miriam, the death of Miriam provides new water. Death of Aaron, on one hand, provides new victory, because the Israelites were treated by God as a holy warriors. So the thing is not about the war itself. It's not about killing people or gaining the land. It's to advance the kingdom of God. I know people who do religious studies and all of this kind of stuff, they don't really care for that. They think only, they discuss all the matters in the social political context. But in our mind, we need to pay attention to the thing that, again, this is not a social political move, fight with the Canaanite king. It is a gospel outreach move. And we talked, if you remember, a few weeks ago, when we talked that previously, God would appear as an angel and we would fight with people, okay? Then God appeared as a human and we would fight with what? Our fight is not against flesh and blood. Remember that, that cross thing that happens because of Jesus. So we fight with ideas, okay? But along with this, if I will direct your attention just for 1 second, if we'll jump into Deuteronomy chapter 8. In Deuteronomy chapter 8, the whole commandment that I command you today, you shall carefully do that you, so verses 1 to 3, that you shall carefully to do, that you may live and multiply and go in and possess the land that the Lord swore to give to your fathers. And you shall remember the whole way that the Lord your God has led you these 40 years in the wilderness that he might humble you, testing you to know what was in your heart, wherever you will keep his commandments or not. And he humbled you and let you hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. Okay, so the thing is now, the bread is it's not the only place in the Bible, but bread is very often connected with the Word of God and vice versa. Okay? Be fed by the Word in the biblical sense, in the spiritual sense, is better than to be fed by bread. Okay? So now Aaron dies, we have a new high priest who provides new heavenly bread, therefore the Word of God. Okay? Two of these things are very important for our passage. Now, let us go into our passage. From the mountain Hor, they set out by the way to the Red Sea to go around the land of Edom. Again, one more time. We are going around land of Edom, and land of Edom is, what happened? Okay. So, if this is our land of Israel, we are coming over here. So they approach from the south, and Edomites are over here. So Negev is a little bit further. That's Negev. It's B, but okay. And Edomites were here. So we could have gone straight through. Instead of this, we had to go down, and we will end up coming through Moab and come from this side of the Jordan. Yes, it was a Lord's provision to bring them across the Jordan so they would cross the waters when they left through the Red Sea, and they would cross the waters of the Jordan when they would come into the land. But it doesn't, it still remains. Our relatives declined us an entrance through. So that's why we had to go around. Now, in verse 5, or second part of verse 4, and the people became impatient on the way. It is very interesting that the people here, there is a regular term for people. In Hebrew, it sounds like am. But here, it's nefesh am. It's the soul of the people. So again, whatever they're grumbling about, and we will hear what they were grumbling about, it's not necessarily a physical thing. It's something deep in their mind, deep in their soul, the distress that they are tired of being in the wilderness. But we need to remember that they got into the wilderness because of what they did. It was not the Lord's intents were to bring them in about a couple of years. So they could have go from Egypt to the land in about 2 years. So 38 years were useless wandering. Now, what do they say? And they spoke against God and against Moses. Again, the word spoke here is not a regular. So in Hebrew, there are like 3 terms for speaking, at least 3. One of them is, let's say, speaking, is when you have a conversation, when you talk to each other. Then, I would say, you are telling someone. So like, sometimes I tell to my kids, just, would you mind to wash the dishes? And even though it's a very nice, polite phrase, it does not presuppose that they will say, no, I don't. It's kind of like...
But they say it politely, huh?
They better not say anything. They do not need to respond to this invitation. The only proper response is go and wash the dishes.
Right.
But that's telling, okay? Then there is another one, and it's like, I will say it this way, deep saying. It's like, you better go and wash the dishes. Okay, so here we have a second one. It's not regular speaking. They were definitely, by using this particular word, Bible or Moses who wrote it down indicates to us that it was like not the worst case scenario emotionally, but it was not a normal conversation. It was not just, we tired. And probably Moses would say, I understand, guys. Just let's press harder. Just let's keep going. We will be there. No, they are definitely in a state of complaint. Okay, and what are they complaining about? First of all, their complaint is addressed to two characters. One is to God and one to Moses. Okay, so both of them are involved. And we will see at the very end that when they confess, we have sinned because we spoke against the Lord and against you, they say to Moses. So what do they say? Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? Is there anything odd in this question?
Yeah,
What's odd?
that the people would question the leadership of Moses, who was led by God.
Okay?
To question his authority, or
Okay.
what it was odd.
Okay. Yeah, after so many years, they still don't get it. That's the guy who was appointed by God to lead them out.
Well, and it's their fault that they were in the wilderness in the first place.
Okay.
But they lose sight of that.
Okay.
But
Linda?
It wasn't Moses that led them out of Egypt. God led them out of Egypt because they were in slavery and they begged God to give them freedom. And he puts Egypt through all these plagues, and then he parts the Red Sea for them. He does all these amazing things along the way. And now they're talking like none of that has happened. The fact that we have to walk for 2 more years after walking for 40 is now a problem.
And it's their fault that they're in the wilderness to begin with.
Exactly.
Okay. Let me read it a little bit maybe differently with some kind of emotional accents, and maybe you will, that's all right. That's all true. Now, why have you brought us, up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? What are they really complaining about? What I see here is they complain about the place of their death. They would rather die in Egypt.
In slavery.
Okay, we are in, yes, instead of dying in the wilderness. Okay, so that's their stuff. Therefore, they follow. So why do they think about death in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and we loathe this worthless food. Okay? So one more time. Going back. So let me...
They're complaining about the manna he provided for them.
That's a good one too.
Okay? We just found new sources of water. Okay? This is one thing. We have change in the leadership with the provision, and manna is still falling down on a regular basis. So we have, and actually in Hebrew, when it says where there is no food, literally it says there is no bread. Okay? It's not food in general. It's like there is no bread. And sometimes interpreters, they do this kind of twist, I would say, when they translate the lechem in Hebrew, they translate it as food. But it's bread and water, the basic stuff. But the thing is, and there is one more thing, very important, is we loathe this worthless food. Worthless is a good translation, probably not precise. The precise thing is it's weightless. That would be a real term. But worthless is good. So it doesn't look like something of a value. So they didn't treat manna with something like a value. And this is the whole thing that we will talk in the story. They had something, but didn't look right to them. See? that's why we will end up with serpent that you need to look at with faith, and you will be healed. Okay? So it's a kind of thing, spoiler alert for those of you who have not been on the first worship service, but it's kind of thing, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. Okay? If you have a problem with faith, God will create circumstances to increase your faith. So whenever you pray for, God, please, increase my faith, you have to be very careful with what you're praying for. Okay? God, it's very difficult for me to pay my tithe money. Okay? There are two ways out of that. One of them is, you will be given more, therefore you can be more generous. Or, if you cannot even pay this much, your salary shrinks. So it's very, you have to always be very careful, because God is very creative. So, one more time. They do not think that they have a bread, proper bread, the bread they like. And they do not see the sources of water that God provides. And this is very interesting. Let's jump very, very fast into first letter of Paul to Corinthians in chapter 10. This is one of the awesome places. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 4. This is one of those places, let me kind of step back. Recently, I was asked, can I give a kind of short interview for Center for Apologetical Research, and the theme was, why do Christians need Old Testament? And we've talked for like 2 hours and just raised some points why. And this is one of the things why. Because when you read New Testament and you have either quote or allusion or reference to Old Testament, unless you read it, unless you know it, it's a blank thing. You have no clue. Even when you start with Jesus, that Jesus is the son of David, son of Abraham. Okay, who these guys are? And then Matthew goes through 42 names, the list of genealogy list of Jesus. It's like, why? And why? And if you go back and then you start to compare, and then you start to wonder. Because it's not an exact genealogy. He crafted very carefully. He put them together with he didn't put them in disorder, but he omits some names, and he definitely, therefore, highlights some other names. So here, for example, Paul says that, "For I do not want you to be unaware, brothers, for our fathers were under the cloud and all passed through the sea," and so on and so forth. So he goes through the Exodus experience. And then in verse 4 he says, "And all drank the same spiritual drink, for they drank from the spiritual rock that followed them, and the rock was Christ." Even outside of Christian theology, in Jewish circles, there is an idea that there was this magnificent rock that would always constantly provide water. So whenever they grumble about water, it's because they want something. They don't like regular water. Let's say regular water. They want some, lemonade. Okay? They want something else. They want something extra. Okay? But the thing is, so they were provided with water. They believe they have no food, the food they like, and they believe they have no water, the water they like. And the thing that God provided for them, let's go back to Numbers, they treat as worthless. Okay? We are not going to press really hard on weightless, so it's not give enough weight, but it's worthless. So it did not have any value in their eyes. Okay? We are not going back, but something like this happened when 12 spies went to see the land at first. Yes, Dwayne?
Well, isn't this typical of the Israelites during this period of time? They complain, and then God blesses them with something, and they forget about it. And then they complain, and then they forget about it.
I would say yes, but it's typical not only of Israelites.
No, that's people. Yeah.
It's people in general. You know, we've been blessed and given much stuff, and people stopped giving thanks for that, and they took it as for granted. You know, we just talked with Ivan right before Bible class that we do not even think that, you know, how many Bibles do we have at home? Let's put it this way.
Quick.
Okay. See, there are places where people, to have a Bible, it's a precious thing. And sometimes dangerous. You know,
And sometimes they don't have any.
they do not have any for, let's say, few reasons. They might not have any because it's not available. On the other hand, it is dangerous to have Bible in the home. So there is elder or a presbyter, pastor or somebody who has Bible, and people come to him, and because the one who has Bible in the house can be arrested or it can be killed. There are still lands like this. So not being thankful, it is a story of the Bible from the very beginning to the very end, to Calvary and further, but it goes, it's not about them, it's about us. We need to remember that. Yes, Charlie.
Are they still coming in like with this flatboat and tearing apart houses, looking for this? Or looking for the Bible in the house?
In some, like Muslim countries, they do. I know that in Soviet Union, yes, if you have a Bible in the house, you better either hide it really, really well, or you can be in trouble.
So, and they come in on a regular basis when you're home?
It depends. It depends of their mood, let's put it this way.
Wow.
How moody they are, okay? Now, let's go back to text. So, two things. They want something, not necessarily of what they've been provided. And what they've been provided, they are definitely not thankful for. Now, verse 6. Then Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people so that many people of Israel died. Okay? Two things about that. So first of all, you have a challenge with food, and you inquire a serpent. What does it remind you?
For garden.
Sure, exactly. That's the first thing that should boom. Okay, problem with food, and we ended up with the serpent who bites us. It's the garden stuff. So it's going back again. It is unthankfulness and disobedience to God as the Father, because He provided, and we are not happy with what He provided. Okay? And instead of asking, we are demanding. Okay? God has no problem with us when we ask. You can ask. He's loving Father. You can ask whatever you want. Just be careful, because He might give it to you. Seriously. He might not, but He might. And that will be a new responsibility. But the thing is, here they are not asking, going back to those words, they are not talking to God, they are demanding from God. We don't like this. They even don't really talk to God. They just say, we don't like whatever you give to us. Okay? So it's a pure sign of unthankfulness. Then, there is another thing. Fiery serpents. Okay, that fiery can be understood in two different ways. One of them is, when snake bites you, it kind of burns. Okay? Big time, I understand. So that can be an understanding why they use the term fiery. On the other hand, what it can be, and some commentators stick with this, that were somewhat supernatural flying serpents that would breathe real fire. And if I will tell you how that word fiery sounds, you will immediately catch that. You will immediately probably remember another passage in the Bible. So the word for fiery sounds like seraphim. Does this help? Okay, now let's go into Isaiah chapter 6. Okay, in Isaiah chapter 6, we see Isaiah in somewhat Holy of Holies context. And I saw the Lord sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and the ends of his robe were filled the temple, and above him stood the seraphim. So seraphim, it's plural, so it's a bunch of seraphs. Each had 6 wings, 2 covered the face, 2 covered the feet, and 2 flew. And one called to another, holy, holy, holy. Okay, and the foundation of the threshold shook. Okay. Now, to clean Isaiah's lips, what did they use? The coal, okay, from the altar. So these guys are very well connected with fire, okay? Were they fire-breathing dragons? I don't know, maybe. I have no problem with, believing that there used to be dragons, or maybe they still fly somewhere, we don't know where. What's the Lake Loch Ness, in Scotland. My son, Aleks, very often refers to this. It's like this one, it's like, okay. I mean, if you'll find it, great. But the point here is, these creatures, apparently, either burned with fire or they provide some kind of feel of burn. Okay? Now, after people started to die, and the people came to Moses and said, we have seen, for we have spoken, okay, we have, demanded against you, against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he take away the serpents from us. Okay? So Moses prayed for the people. 2 things about this. We are not in the New Testament yet, of course. Therefore, we have a man who is somewhat a substitute for the people. So instead of falling on their knees and praying to God themselves, they come to Moses. Okay? Interestingly enough, in our gospel passage where we will see this, John does not compare, or Jesus when he talks to Nicodemus, does not compare himself to Moses, but he compares himself to a snake, the lifted up snake. Okay? So he is not the one who is a kind of like an intermediary servant that brings petitions to God. But he is the one who basically provides healing. Okay? And that's important. So we are here. They still pray to Moses. And then Moses delivers message to the people. Verse 8. And the Lord said to Moses, make a fiery serpent and set it on the pole. Okay? So he had to, what literally is you need to make an image on the banner of a fiery serpent and set this banner on the poles. Something like this. This beautiful stuff for LWML. So something like this, but really high enough so people in the camp can see. And everyone is bidden, when he sees it, shall live. So Moses made a bronze serpent and set it on the pole. And if a serpent bit anyone, he would look at the bronze serpent and live. So 2 things about this. The word which is here for bronze, it's more like either copper, or maybe they were already into the art of making alloys. So the copper, if you add some things, it turns into bronze. So the copper is more reddish. Bronze is more yellowish, it's more goldish. Okay? So, like for example, in Russian Bible, it's a copper serpent. It's not bronze serpent. So, whatever. It's not important. The thing is, when you have a metal thing, kind of like with either metal threads or metal kind of wire, turned, when it's on the sun, it shines. Okay? So that's kind of idea of a fiery thing behind this one. I don't think this one would produce fire itself. The most important thing is you can look at this with faith and the God would provide healing. And it is important to understand that this thing by itself is an important image, but as every good thing, humans have a very interesting ability. They can twist any good thing into an idol.
Yes.
Anything. Literally anything.
Yeah.
They turn later on they turn temple into an idol. Okay, the place where God's supposed to be present, the name of God where should be present, they turn this into an idol. Okay, some people turn Bible and especially particular translation of a Bible into an idol. Okay, instead of digging more into and starting compare and live according, it's just that's the thing. Okay, in Luther's days they turned some elements of the sacrament of altar into an idol. There's a very famous story where people would come to the worship service within Roman Catholic, context. As you remember, Martin Luther was, first of all, Roman Catholic priest. So they would come, and since at those days they would not be given bread and wine, they would be given only bread. So a person would take a bread, put it in the mouth, priest will pass by, they will take it out, put it in the pocket, come home, and nail it to the doorpost so the evil spirits would not come in. Because this is the body of the Lord, and it will defend the house from any evil spirits. Again, any good thing can be turned into an idol. Same thing happened with this one. Now, we are here, in our timeline. 1445 BC. So we enter the land around 1400 BC. Now, if we will go into, let's go into 2 Kings chapter 18. 2 Kings.
Could you say that again, please?
2 Kings chapter 18. I will write it down. We find, actually in the days of Isaiah, so 2 Kings 18, let's say 1 through 4. In the 3rd year of Hoshea, son of Elah, king of Israel, so that's the guy on the north. So to make generations kind of together, the people on the north and the people on the south. So when the northern guy was ruling for about 3 years, Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Abi, the daughter of Zechariah. And he did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, according to all that David, his father, done. He removed the high places, okay, so the places where they worshipped other gods, okay? He removed the high places and broke the pillars and cut down of Asherahs. So that's a female goddess or goddesses, the images. Very often you would find a male figure carved out of stone and female figure carved out of wood. Very interesting. Okay, and then verse 4, so removes and cut down Asherahs, and he broke in pieces, now, let's read careful. He broke in pieces the bronze serpent that Moses had made, for until those days the people of Israel had made offerings to it and call it Nehushtan. Okay? So Nehushtan is kind of like a combination of the word of the bronze serpent, so they turn it and turn it. Now think about that. I purposely didn't draw the whole timeline because I drew the timeline many lessons. What year roughly is Isaiah's and Hezekiah's ministry? We talked about this many times.
800 BC?
Something like 640, okay? Now, from 1400 to 700 or even 800, close enough. How many centuries? About 6, 7 centuries. So 6 or 7 centuries. We have this thing somewhere within the land of Israel. Okay, let's make it on the pole. And let's make it the fiery serpent. Okay? Somewhere we have days of Joshua conquering the land. Then we have Judges for about 300, 400 years. Then we have righteous David. Then we have his son, Solomon, building the temple. Then we have split of the kingdom. But this thing still somewhere stands, and people from time to time go there and worship it. Okay? Think about that. We've never heard it as a background story for all of these things. Now you want to go back and maybe reread it. Okay? But seriously speaking, only roughly in 740s, 50s, okay? 20s. Probably 20s. So for about 700 plus years, they had this thing being a part of their mentality and worship system, apart definitely or against the system that the Lord provided. Okay? And that's an important thing. Okay? Questions or comments?